It's the 8th of April 2024, about 3 p.m. in the afternoon UK time, and a lot going on. I know this is about the eclipse, but first I need to talk about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. Shortly after I did my last video, there was a big earthquake in Taiwan, followed by two 4.8 earthquakes in California, followed by an earthquake in New York. There's been a number of rumbles in different places all around the world. I take no pride in forecasting earthquakes, but to me, it's obvious why this is happening. Here's a story. Many years ago, last century, computers were like televisions, big boxes. The internet wasn't upon us. Myself and an astrological colleague from the south of England, somehow we came up with a lot of data from the American Bureau of Seismology, and we found that we had information on every earthquake ever over a 3-year period, with the exact latitude and longitude of the epicenter, the depth of the earthquake, the exact second that it was recorded. So we thought, well, this is such good information, we can't possibly not use it. So even though we had computers and the internet wasn't yet available to us, we ran the horoscopes for every one of those, not for every one, that would have been too much. We ran the horoscopes for about 150 to 200 of those earthquakes, seeking to find some type of common denominator. And afterwards, when we correlated all the results of running a normal horoscope, we realized that we only found what would seem to be astrologically acceptable explanation for earthquakes in about 20 to 25% of those charts. Nowhere near enough to actually give us even a fighting chance of being able to say, okay, we know what the astrological significators are. So we were stumped. And then between us, we had a brainwave. And we stopped looking at the horoscopes from a geocentric perspective and instead looked at them from a heliocentric perspective, putting the sun in the centre of the horoscope instead of the earth. The only difference between these two is, of course, that there's no retrogrades in a helio, and that in a helio horoscope, the sun is not there, but the earth is. When we recomputed these charts from a heliocentric perspective, we found that we were able to find significant factors in over 75% of these horoscopes. And the single most common factor was a correlation by strong astrological aspect between Jupiter and Uranus, and sometimes the Sun as well. And we looked at the Jupiter-Uranus oppositions, the squares, and particularly the conjunctions. Now, of course, we have a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which becomes exact in about 12 days' time from now. I'm sorry to say I do expect further geophysical activity on the surface of our planet over the coming 2, possibly 3 weeks. But then I expect it to decrease, and by the end of April, I seriously think we're heading into a much more stable time. It would be easy for people who are not astrologically aware to attribute a number of these earthquakes to the eclipse. And there's a lot of rubbish out there about what eclipses do. Eclipses have been recorded since time immemorial. And yes, they've always been associated with difficulty. But I suggest that's superstition, and that eclipses can be seen as benign as much as malign. An eclipse, after all, is just when the sun and the moon are in the same degree of longitude, as they are every month when it comes to new moon, but also in the same degree of latitude, which doesn't happen that often at all. Now, there's a number of people out there who have taken me to task and saying it's all a con, it's all a big conspiracy. The sun and the moon are exactly the same distance from the earth as each other. In which case then, when they're in the same, if they're the same distance from each other, when they're in the same degree of latitude and longitude, they're going to collide. That should be pretty interesting. And there's a number of people out there who also say it's all a con. We're actually living on a flat plane. The Earth is not round. We don't live on a globe. And to which I would say, well, that's a story that's gone around the world a number of times. Think about it. In a few hours from now, the moon will pass directly in between the Earth and the sun. Something like this happens on average to this degree of precision. It's happened 4 or 5 times in my lifetime. But there's something different about this one. The sun will be at 19 degrees 24 minutes of Aries. The moon will be at 19 degrees 24 minutes of Aries. Chiron will be at 19 degrees 24 minutes of Aries. Not in terms of latitude and longitude, the Earth, the sun and the moon will be in a directly straight line with each other. Chiron will be the other side to the sun, and in a degree of longitude it will also be in an exactly straight line, not latitude. Nevertheless, one way of interpreting a total eclipse, whether it's of the sun or the moon, is to suggest that, and this is not a partial eclipse or a penumbral eclipse, this is only with total eclipses, is that as the sun and the moon line up directly with the Earth, there's a sense of, it's like lenses, sharpening focus, amplifying focus. For example, with today's eclipse, the moon is going to pass in a straight line exactly between the Earth and the sun. So it could be said that on the one hand, the sun's light is going to be occluded from us. We're going to be blocked off from the sun's light. This is true. This is why the ancients used to be so scared of eclipses, because without the sun, we die. The sun gives us heat, light, and life, and without it, we wouldn't be here. So when the sun is eclipsed, everyone panics because they think we're all going to die. The new moon, which is after all what this is in many ways amplifying the sun. And the sun's energy passing metaphorically through the moon at a point on the Earth's surface, the point of the shadow of the eclipse, in this particular case, northern Mexico, the central and eastern seaboard of the USA, and then across the northern Atlantic. It does seem as if this line is on the receiving end of a vastly amplified focus. When you add Chiron into it as well, that ramps it up by a magnitude of 100. It's really bringing into the equation the potentials on the negative side for dichotomy, fragmentation, disintegration. Left against right, black against white. It's about the splitting of nations, the splitting of tribes, the splitting of people against each other with no compromise, no negotiation, no middle ground. The vitriol and the hatred that is spewing out from every side is creating such a split personality, not only in America, but in every country of the world. A more neutral way of suggesting this eclipse with Chiron directly in the focal point is that we are seriously now being challenged to recognise as a species how good we are at self-sabotaging. How collectively we're so good at shooting ourselves in the foot, almost through fear of success. If you constantly fail just before you reach the point of success, then you can keep coming back and trying again. But if you succeed once, you then have no excuse for failure. So there is a middle ground point of view that this eclipse is a direct challenge to us as a species to say enough is enough. It's time to take a next step at the evolutionary level and to start taking total responsibility for our actions, both individually and collectively. The positive way of looking at this eclipse is that more and more individuals, and it all starts with the individual, remember, are going to become more and more aware of the need, not so much anymore for dichotomy, fragmentation and disintegration, but for integration, assimilation and holism. Whenever I deal with Chiron in a person's chart, I say, look, there's a shadow in you. There's a bit of darkness in you. You're never going to get it right. You're never going to be good enough, but you're always getting better. And most people will then go, I've got to get rid of this shadow. I've got to get rid of this darkness. I don't want to be a bad person. All well and good. You don't have to be a bad person. That's a choice on your part. But you're never going to get rid of a shadow. You come to terms with it. You give it a nice little dungeon at the core of your being where it can fester away and rot away to its heart's content. And you can occasionally let it out to play, and it comes out and then it goes back into its dungeon after time, knowing that it's not being persecuted, that it's welcome to stay, even if it's just 1% and it's part of the team. Transpose that from the individual into the collective. As a species, we're always going to feel the capacity for anger and dislike. Always. That's part of the human nature. But when it turns into hatred, just because of someone else's religion or political viewpoint or skin colour, A, that's not intelligent. B, it's evolutionarily dumb. And C, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And you might as well just retrovert back into the Stone Age. The future's calling us now, and it's calling us into a state where we start dealing with each other on a much more egalitarian and equal basis. As I've said before, this is the difference between human beings and humans being. Time to step up. And whilst this eclipse won't provoke or show any specific direct action at the actual moment of the eclipse, it's certainly a trigger point that's waking us up collectively and giving us an opportunity to step forward evolutionarily. And as I'm fond of saying to my clients, you get windows of opportunity, and if you take them, you thrive. And if you don't take them, you lose nothing. You just stay the same. In my 68, nearly 69 years on this planet, I've seen massive steps, not only technologically, but spiritually as well as population-wise. We're heading into unknown times. We're heading into the most concentrated time of the whole of human history. Probably see the outcome within my lifetime. And today and the next couple of weeks is one of those, I know a few of you hate this, it's one of those real pimples on top of the boil. Act in ways your grandchildren will be proud of you for. Can't say better than that. I'm going to stop there. Catch you later, world. Bye.